Hi everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about the books I read between December 29th and January 4th. First up, I read Shiloh Season by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor, and I gave this book 3.75 stars. This is the second book in the Shiloh series. In this book, we're still following Marty, and he is still having issues with the man in his town named Judd Travers. I can't really say any more without spoiling book one. I enjoyed this book more than the first book, but if you've seen me talk about the first book, part of the reason I had an issue with the first book was because it didn't end the way I remembered it, as the series was a reread for me. And I was confused as to the ending, and that kind of jarred me. And I thought they were more epic than I remember them being. This one, despite, again, being a very small book, definitely had more of that, I don't want to say epic feel, because again, you can't get super epic in a book this short, but like, this one felt like it had more depth to it than the first book. And so I enjoyed this one a little bit more. I definitely plan to reread the third book in this series, and then finally this year get through the fourth book, which I've never read because it came out years after the original trilogy. Next up, I read Unlocked by Shannon Messenger, and I gave this book 5 stars. This is book 8.5 in the Keeper of the Lost City series. That series follows a girl named Sophie who has the ability to read minds and is the only person she knows that can do that, and kept it from everybody in her life until one day she meets a boy who can do the same thing, and he explains to her why she has that ability. This book is interesting because it's kind of like a recap book, essentially. Like, it's broken down into sections. So we get like it's called the registry, and we get backstory on a lot of our main characters. There's a whole section about different locations we've seen in the story. It explains a lot of the backstory on the series as a whole. And so it's a really nice little recap book that kind of refreshes your memory on everything that's been going on in the first 8 books before you dive into book 9. Though the most interesting part of this book, besides the beautiful portraits that are in here, giving you a look at some of the characters in the book and the way that Shannon Messenger imagines them looking, is the fact that the last, like, let's see, 200 or so pages? Yeah, is a novella, and it takes place directly after the events of book 8. Like, it picks up right where book 8 leaves off, and I'm assuming book 9 will follow from the end of this point on. And so it's like, that is the most important part of this book, in my opinion, is the little novella in the back. And it is just as good as every other Keeper of the Lost Cities book that I've read. I also just love this edition that I got. I pre-ordered it, and it has the detailing on the hardback, and then it comes with this beautiful, gorgeous poster of Keith and Sophie on Sylvain's back, and it's just absolutely stunning. And we have this really cool map as the end papers. As somebody who absolutely loves this series, I'm so glad I got this edition of this book, because there's so many little Easter eggs and goodies in it, and I just really enjoyed getting to have this kind of recap, and like I said, the beautiful portraits and the amazing novella that makes me wish I had book 9 in my hands right now. Next up, I read The Last Ever After by Samain Chainani, and I gave this book 3.75 stars. This is the third book in the School for Good and Evil series. In this book, we're still following Sophie and Agatha, and this book picks up where the second book left off. What's neat in this one is that we get to meet some classic fairy tale characters, and I thought their inclusion in this one was really neat, as we'd obviously heard about them in the first 2 books, but we hadn't actually met any of them yet, so I really enjoyed that. Again, I find the girls' friendship fascinating as they try to navigate that, despite the whole point of the School of Good for Evil telling them that they shouldn't be friends because one of them is supposed to be at the School for Good and the other is supposed to be at the School for Evil. So again, it is really interesting to see them struggle with their personality differences despite their friendship. This was probably my least favorite book that I've read so far, but I still really enjoyed it and definitely plan to continue on with the series. Next up, I read Wayside School Beneath the Cloud of Doom by Louise Sacker, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This is the fourth book in the Wayside School series. Despite the fact that it's been forever since he's written a book in this series, this picks up like no time has passed. It is the exact same stuff you would expect from a Wayside School book. It was quite nice being back with these very familiar characters and getting to read new adventures from them. I was so excited when I saw he wrote a fourth book. You know, it's the same crazy bouncing around from character to character and the threads of the narrative kind of loosely tying together in each chapter and coming back around in the end. And basically there is a cloud of doom coming towards the school and the children have to deal with that and the effects it has on everybody in the school. I really like this book. I liked being back with these characters in this world, and I don't know if this is the last book he's going to write in the series, as he's proven. I'm not even sure he knows, but if he continues to write in this world, I will continue reading it because I love it and it makes me so nostalgic, even if it is a brand new book. Next up, I read A Dash of Trouble by Anna Mariano. I think that's how you say that. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad. And I gave this book 4 stars. In this book, we follow Leo, who is the youngest of 5 girls. She longs to work in the bakery her parents own like her older sisters. When all 4 of her older sisters are allowed to miss school to work in the bakery in preparation of a big celebration, Leo is very upset that she can't join them. On her way to school, she passes by the bakery and realizes that no one is there, which she finds very odd. With the help of her friend Caroline, she sneaks out of the school to go to the bakery and ends up finding out that her mother and sisters have magic. She is floored by the news that her mom, her aunt, and her sisters are brujas. She then learns that she is too. Then, despite being warned by her older sister that she's not quite old enough to be practicing magic yet, she decides to use magic to help out her friend Caroline, only it doesn't go as she planned and she ends up getting in over her head. She then has to figure out how to fix the mess that she's caused. I really enjoyed the magic in this book and how it works, and getting to see that demonstrated and how easy it is to make a mistake with that magic if you don't know what you're doing. I liked getting to see Leo's friendship with Caroline and how important that was to her, and her trying to help and having the best intentions and having it not quite go as planned, and her trying to figure out how to fix that without also bringing her sisters and her mom in because she didn't want to get in trouble for using magic. I like the relationship between her and her sisters and how that was demonstrated as the youngest sibling. I have definitely experienced that frustration of how come they can do something I can't. I think anybody who is the youngest sibling kind of knows what that's like. I definitely plan to continue on with the series because I want to see more of Leo and her family and their family magic and see how that plays out in the coming books. I thought this was quite the neat little middle grade and I really enjoyed it. Next up, I read The Circus of Stolen Dreams by Lorelei Savarin, and I gave this book 3.75 stars. In this book, we follow Andrea, whose little brother disappeared 3 years ago, and Andrea feels that it's all her fault. When her parents tell her that the next day people will be coming to take her little brother's stuff away, she freaks out. This really intensifies her guilt, and she ends up going for a bike ride and stumbling across a circus. The price of entrance at this circus is either a memory, a dream, or a nightmare. She has no problem giving that up so that she can spend a night forgetting about what happened to her brother and spend the night going through tents filled with dreams and nightmares that other people have given up. Things are going well until she enters a nightmare tent and recognizes the nightmare as the one her little brother had frequently. This makes her wonder if her brother somehow found his way to this same circus. She hopes that she's finally found a clue as to what happened to her brother and is determined to see if this can lead her to finally finding out the truth about the night her brother disappeared. I thought this was quite the interesting premise for a novel where you go to this like circus and you get to travel through different dreams, which can be good, or nightmares, which can be bad. And some people like being scared. Like, there's a reason we go to haunted houses. Well, I don't go to haunted houses because I don't like being scared, but people who like being scared go to haunted houses because they find some enjoyment out of it. So you have the nightmare tents that people like to go through because they do like to be scared. And then you have the fun tents where people have left fun dreams that they want to relive over and over and over again. And I think we've all had a dream that we wouldn't mind reliving. I thought it was really interesting how Andrea comes across this nightmare and realizes that it's her little brother's, and it makes her absolutely certain that her brother has been to this circus and makes her decide that she has to figure out what happened. And I like seeing how the novel progresses from there. This book definitely had some twists and turns I didn't see coming, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, I read From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks, and I gave this book 5 stars. In this book, we follow Zoe, and it's her 12th birthday, and she gets a letter from her dad. Her birth dad, Marcus, who's in prison and has been her entire life. She's never heard from him before, so she's very curious about this letter. She makes a choice not to tell her mom and stepdad that she got this letter and writes Marcus back, and they end up continuing to correspond. When Marcus claims that he is innocent, it sends Zoe spiraling. She wonders if he's telling the truth and decides to get to the bottom of the matter while still hiding all of this from her parents. I really enjoyed this book. I really like Zoe and seeing her kind of struggle with, why has he written me after all of this time? What did he do to end up in jail? Is he really innocent? It is also interesting to see her struggle with keeping this from her parents. And part of that is because her mom refuses to talk about her birth dad. Like, she knows nothing about him because every time she tries to bring him up, her mom just completely shuts her down. And so it is really interesting seeing that dynamic and her struggle with this possibility, and realizing that there is a possibility that he's innocent, that just because he's in jail doesn't mean that he committed the crime, because until this point in her life, she figured if you were in jail, you absolutely did it. So it is quite interesting seeing her come to that realization and then wonder if Marcus is telling her the truth, and trying to figure out if there's any way she can prove that's the truth. She also is dealing with a kind of fractured friendship that plays into this story, and I thought that was quite interesting, and kind of seeing her try to navigate that while also navigating her feelings about what is going on with her birth dad and kind of hiding it from her parents. I just really, really enjoyed this book and enjoyed how it played out, and I definitely plan to check out some more of Janae Marks' books. Lastly, I read Hollow Pox by Jessica Townsend. Now, I'm not going to give you my star rating because this is one of my 5-star predictions, so you'll have to wait for my 5-star prediction wrap-up for that. But this is the 3rd book in the Nevermoor series. The Nevermoor series follows a girl named Morgan Crow, who is cursed to die on, I want to say, her 11th birthday, until she is rescued by Jupiter North and whisked off to the land of Nevermoor. In this book, Morgan is dealing with the fact that animals who are sentient animals are being infected with this random disease that essentially turns them back into animals, which is completely unsentient animals. And it's kind of a bit of a pandemic, kind of like the one we're living in real life, just it's affecting sentient animals. And she kind of has to deal with how that affects the world that she lives in. And there were definitely some things that I could relate to given the current circumstances of the world in this book. I will tell you that I am still loving this series, and I loved getting to see how this played out in the fictional world of Nevermoor, and I just love this series and love Morgan and am looking forward to more time in this world. So these are some of the books that I have read recently. Have you read any of these books? Feel free to talk to me about them in the comments below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me snowman emojis. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!